Colleagues, it's great to welcome you here this afternoon. You know, these staff meetings is part of a culture that's developing at the university. We gather as a university community, and we know that communion and community is strengthened through communication and consultation and deliberation and constructive dialogue. So today we have a program for you where you see we will focus on an introduction and context sketch by our Rector and Vice-Chancellor, Prof Wim de Villiers. Thereafter, our Registrar, Dr. Ronel Retief, will share ideas on our registration process and the NSFAS process at the university. And then in the third round, Professor Hester Klopper, our DVC for Strategy and Internationalisation, will tell us about the project, the progress that we're making with our strategy, our new strategy, and she will give you fresh news also from the planning session that the Institutional Planning Forum had yesterday and the day before yesterday. Thereafter, we will have time, about 20 minutes for discussion and questions with our panel of today, and then our rector will conclude. Colleagues, we also welcome our colleagues who are electronically present. They are from the Tygerberg campus and the Belleville Park campus, and we're great that we can also celebrate electronic communion. And as you know, at the end, we have a lunch bag available, and you can then enjoy that. We want to observe at the start of our proceedings here today a moment of silence, also a moment where we remember colleagues and students who had passed on in the past year and also in recent months in this year. So I would like you to stand while I do a brief word of meditation as we become quiet. As people from various religious and secular backgrounds, we observe a moment of silence. As university community, we observe this moment of silence to firstly express gratitude for the responsibilities and the opportunities bestowed upon us. We secondly observe this moment of silence to gather strength and wisdom for all our challenges in personal and professional life. And lastly, we observe this moment of silence to remember hyphenated, to say you are again members, you are always members, to remember and honor colleagues and students and alumni who had passed on in the past year and in recent months. Kom ons word stil vir 'n oomblik. Ek dank u. We then start with our program colleagues. The rector will start, and without me announcing again, Dr. Retief and Dr. Klopper will follow on him.
Dankie Nico. Thank you very much Nico. Good afternoon colleagues. Goeiemiddag collega's. Mawene. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon to introduce this topic and also to give you some context. So I'm going to start off by emphasizing 10 highlights of 2018 to bring this to your attention and to really emphasize that. So in 2018, I think we as a university, we can be proud that we again awarded a record number of degrees and qualifications. And this would include the March 2018 graduation ceremony as well. 9,032 qualifications, which included 1,620 masters and a record number of PhDs, 305 PhDs for the 2018 academic year. The number of PhDs easily surpassed a previous record of 280, and on the most recent round of faculty board meetings last week, it seems that we're going to again increase this number of PhDs, so I think we can be proud of that. Secondly, it's important to note, yes, we broaden access, but we also place a very high premium on student success. So 8 out of 10 SU students complete their studies, and we have a number of less than 1 out of 10 first years drop out. So I want to put this into some context by showing you this slide that shows data provided by the Department of Higher Education and Training. And it speaks to the diverse performance in a diverse system in the South African system, 26 higher education institutions. And on the x-axis, it shows dropout percentage after 1 year, and on the y-axis, it shows throughput percentage after 8 years. And these data would be that for the 2009 cohort in 3- and 4-year programs. So right in the middle there at the intersection of the two red dotted lines, you see what the national figure is. So about 17% had dropped out after 1 year, and about a 68% throughput percentage after 8 years. And you can see where Stellenbosch University is, in the top left-hand corner there in that quadrant. So I think that's a very good position to be in, and it's a testament not only to our student intake, but also significantly to our academics and the support staff that enable them to achieve this success in a system where we provide wraparound support at all levels. So I think we can be proud of that. Thirdly, the figures last year showed that Stellenbosch University, that top students come to us. And that's what we want to have. We want top students, and we want top academics, and we want top pass staff. And the average grade 12 percentage of newcomers, first years, was 77% last year. Nommer 4, in termen van sport en kultuur, ons was verlede jaar weer die rugby varsity cup kampioene, en ons skoor steeds die wêreld nommer 1. En ons kan werklik trots wees daarop in terms of sport and culture. I think our choir is really something else to behold. They're bringing out a new CD in the week after next, together with a woordfeest. And they're also giving a number of performances here as well. So please attend. They're fantastic. Social impact. It's wonderful, a number of awards for this. Our Stellenbosch University Legal Aid Clinic got an award for really being one of the foremost, the foremost legal aid firm in Africa, and for the number of social impact issues that they tackle and that they also successfully take on behalf of clients. Our students are very much involved in terms of being involved in the society and the community, into improvement of affordable housing, and they were involved to a significant extent in a cross-faculty, interdisciplinary fashion at community in Grabouw, for which they were also recognized. We provide significant financial assistance to our students. These are the numbers: 500 million rand in undergraduate bursaries and loans, of which 1/5 of this is from our own main budget. And that's a strategic decision that we made to ensure and broaden access together with success. Our campus renewal project. You certainly, and I have some sympathy with you in terms of the dust and disruption, but with a teaching and learning center that's arising rapidly next to the Nielsee and the newly refurbished, renovated Adam Small and renamed Adam Small Theatre Complex. Only in this last month, we broke ground on the new 1 billion plus rand project, large project, probably the largest project on campus in history, which is the biomedical research facility that will arise on our Tygerberg campus. Last year was the centenary project. We commemorated our centenary, and we're now in the first year of our second century. I was very pleased with the general tenor of the centenary project and what was achieved, because yes, there was a celebration of some of our achievements, but there was a very, very significant and deliberate effort that we need to acknowledge our contributions to the injustices of the past, and that we need to learn lessons from the past as we move forward into the next century. So I was happy with what was achieved there. I thought there was an excellent town and gown conference towards the end of the year, which really engendered a lot of interest. Another important highlight of last year was the Vision 2040, the new Vision 2040, and the strategic framework 2019-2024 that was that we I think it was in July, August, that Professor Klopper and myself, that we had a meeting here. And this is a new roadmap for the future for Stellenbosch University as we go forward. And then no speech of mine recently would be complete without me mentioning something that's very close to my heart, which is the establishment of a new school for data science and computational thinking, for which the foundation was laid for an interdisciplinary school, multi-faculty, spanning the entire academic project. So not only postgraduate, but also undergraduate. And the reason why this is important is because of the new world of work that we're facing, and the fourth industrial revolution that is upon us. And I'll show something about that later on. So these are some of the highlights. But there are significant challenges that we face in 2019 as well. They're national challenges, national higher education challenges, which of course impact Stellenbosch University as well. And I list a number of those. Accumulating student debt and financial exclusion. So accumulating student debt. At a recent Parliamentary Portfolio Committee meeting, a figure was provided by Professor Ahmed Bawa, who is the CEO of USAF, of 10 billion rand accumulated student debt. For UKZN alone, it's 850 million rand of student debt, which is a crippling amount of money. Financial exclusion, it is our policy that we will not exclude, and it's our utmost desire not to exclude any student on financial grounds if there is academic merit. Second bullet point there, issues that remain with regard to student accommodation, transport, and campus health services, especially a dire need for clinical psychologists amidst a need with regard to mental health. NSFAS, National Student Financial Aid Scheme, National Student Financial Aid Scheme, appeals and also confusion about allowances. Our registrar will provide more information about that. But I can say that the NSFAS of late 2018 and also early 2019 is much, much better than what we had before. So there is significant improvement that we see in that. It's not perfect by any means, but it is improving. Academic records and certificates. Then an interesting issue in terms of treatment of workers and insourcing nationally. There is a misconception with regard to insourcing that this is actually occurring at the majority of South African universities. It's actually a great minority of the South African higher education institute. And our particular policy is not one of willy-nilly insourcing, but that of viable sourcing or sustainable sourcing of workers. And we're also careful not to look at workers as a homogeneous group in this regard. And the two principles that are most important in this policy of viable sourcing or sustainable sourcing, and which is, the information is available on our website, the two principles are that is, one, central to this is that of human dignity, and two is a livable wage. Those are very important principles to us. The last one there is continuing tension around the issues of safety and also security of students. So on the one hand is a totally understandable request that there should be secure, that the campuses should be safe and secure, but on the other hand, that there should be a balance between that and the securitization of campuses. So these are some of the issues that are nationally relevant, but certainly will also play out at Stellenbosch University. The new world of work. We had in the last 2 days, we had an institutional planning forum where this was discussed at a panel discussion, where we now, in the age of very rapidly upon us, the fourth industrial revolution, and the challenges that this will set us in terms of the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and ethics, system integration, cloud computing, 3D, big data, and augmented reality and robots. How are we going to equip not only our students, but also our staff and our academics for this challenge? I thought this was, cut a little bit close to home here when this slide was shown looking at the campus users of the future. And you see the three columns there, the boomers and the millennials and Generation Z. And I unfortunately had to identify with the left-hand column there, the boomers. And it's true. In that last line there, the attitude to technology, early IT adopter. Yes, I would certainly count myself as an early IT adopter in terms of cell phones and TV, etc. But it's a different attitude to career, different decisions that are being made, different way of thinking. And millennials being, and I think that's interesting designation as well, who are considered digital natives. For them, tablets, smartphones, that's just a matter of course. And they're digital entrepreneurs. Whilst Generation Z, they would be technoholics. That's the designation of that generation. So something to think about, and that is why this establishment of the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking is a very significant priority for us. So what is our roadmap for the future in doing and tackling all these challenges? So it's our vision. This is encompassed in our vision. The Stellenbosch University will be Africa's leading research-intensive university. It's globally recognized as excellent, inclusive, innovative, and we promote knowledge in service of society. And these are the core strategic themes that are part of the strategic framework 2019-2024 to achieve this strategy. Number one, a thriving Stellenbosch University. 2, a transformative student experience. 3, purposeful partnerships and inclusive networks. 4, networked and collaborative teaching and learning. 5, research for impact. And very importantly, 6, for the first time ever included as a core strategic theme, you all. We want to be the employer of choice. So how are we going to do that? And that was Prof Hester is going to give you more feedback on what we discussed at our recent institutional planning forum, but now we need to put some actions behind this, and it needs to be embedded in our being, because in the end we want to be a value-driven, and that's first and foremost, we want to be a value-driven organization. And as you know, I'm a physician, so I look for acronyms. And this one is easy. It's E-CARE. E-CARE. Excellence, compassion, accountability, respect, and equity. And every action of ours, we need to take back to these core values. So these would be my 4 top priorities for this year that we want to really move on, and how it aligns with the different core strategic themes. Research-intensive university. For example, the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking, where we want to do research for impact. 2, digitalization. For example, building out, expanding digital learning. 2 new, very important university-wide systems, SunFin, SunStudent. And this would serve the strategic themes of a thriving Stellenbosch University, a transformative student experience, networked and collaborative teaching and learning. 3, we want to align our processes, ons prosesse belyn, in terms of systems and policies, because we need that also to serve a thriving Stellenbosch University. And then a focus on staff, employer of choice, and how to embody and how to enact this focus on staff is a real emphasis on a strategic personnel fund. When I started, we had a strategic personnel fund of about 75 to 80 million rand, and the change that brought in terms of the diversity of our staff core, I think was very, very significant. So those are the things that we want to achieve in moving this university forward this year. It's an exciting time to be part of this organization. It is a vibrant organization. It is a learning organization, but it is here because of you. And we really value your feedback as well. So next up is Dr. Retief.
Good afternoon, everybody. Goeiemiddag. Baie dankie vir die geleentheid om oor registrasie te kan gesels. When we speak about registration, I have to draw your attention to the fact that it includes all the supporting processes. So registration is no longer just the action of registering a student. It is a collaborative effort of staff and of students. We had a lot of support from our SRC and other student societies, and this is what I will focus on today. Registration has also become a time where the socio-economic challenges of our students really come to the fore. And for that reason, all eyes are on institutions in South Africa as we take our students through this trying period for many of them. So we had to report on a daily basis to the Department of Higher Education and Training, and we also had to generate 2 reports to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on registration and these supporting processes. So I will focus on some statistics. I will just give you an overview. Then I will speak a little bit about the communication strategies that we used. I will show you a little bit on online and assisted registration. We'll speak about fees and debt management, accommodation, which was really a hot topic this year. And then I'll venture into the conversation around NSFAS, and we'll speak a little bit about that. And I'm happy to say that many of my colleagues who work in these various fields are in the audience today, and I'm sure they will be keen to also answer questions on some of these topics. So just to show you the overall registration numbers of 2019, we have our number of new first years on the left-hand side, and you will see that our numbers went down a bit. And then our total number of undergrad enrollments was also affected with a slight decrease of about 1% in our undergrad enrollments. There's a wonderful longish report that contains a lot of detail on registration that will be made available in the institution that unpacks some of these numbers in terms of demographics, language, race, population group distributions, where our students come from in terms of province. So we will be distributing that in the institution as well. Then you will know on the 16th of December 2017, we had an announcement that higher education would be fee-free. And at that point, we realized that we can no longer just have a notice that we email to students in November, and we hope everything stays the same throughout the December holiday, and when they arrive in January, everything would be in place. We started to realize that things are changing rapidly. It can change over a December holiday. And we also, at that point, collaborated with our corporate communications division to set up a website where we can update information regularly and where students could then get in-time information. And these are just examples. We had links to fees and registration on various landing pages. And then once you clicked on them, you were taken to sections on student fees and more information on registration. So here you can see the registration periods. The one aspect I want to mention here is that we've received a rather anxious letter from the embassy in Zimbabwe about 2 weeks ago, pleading for us to allow Zimbabwean students to register later than usual because of challenges that they've experienced with their visas. And we've liaised with our SU International, and we've come up with a plan to keep some residence places open, thanks also to our residence placement office, and to allow them to do late registration. We know that that also impacted the faculty, so we have to thank them. And we are happy to say that the last that we've heard is that our Zimbabwean students actually, many of them came into the country, and we were registering them this year, this week, in the beginning of the week, on Monday. So the other word that were thrown around quite a bit was walk-ins. Dit is studente wat nie noodwendig aansoek gedoen het by Stellenbosch Universiteit nie, en wat dan nou in Januarie besluit hulle wil graag studeer. En die regering het die sogenaamde Central Application Clearinghouse portaal gevestig, waar sulke studente dan kan aanteken en hulle besonderhede en hulle rigtings waarna hulle belangstel kan registreer, en hulle word dan geplaas of universiteite kan dan gaan kyk watter studente is daar nog in die mark wat nog nie 'n tuiste gevind het nie. So what we've done at Stellenbosch University, because, you know, it's always a question what to do with walk-ins, we've put 2 computers in Admin A, and the staff of the Client Services Center assisted students then to register on the catch, so that it's not just a case of them showing up here and us telling them, sorry, you know, we are full and we can't help you. And I think it worked really well. We're very thankful towards our colleagues there. This is a rather full slide. This year, because of our continuous communication, we've really, I think, had reduced inquiries quite a bit. I ran into Werner Abrams, who said that they really, you know, they don't feel the pressure as much this year as they had in previous years. We have a really efficient system of trying to deal with outstanding debt. So we allow our students who have NSFAS bursaries or other bursaries and whose bursary amounts exceed the outstanding debt amount to register. We've also made an arrangement for them to sign a form to commit to 3 installments, which just takes off the pressure at the beginning of the year. And then, as I've said, NSFAS-funded students were allowed to register within certain arrangements with the department. And then accommodation. So if you look at this slide, you'll see that we have admitted about 5,200 first-time entering students, and we have 2,300 beds for first years on the Stellenbosch and Tygerberg campuses. And I don't think it's rocket science. You can see that we have a problem there. So we already make allocations towards the end of the application year. So the first round of placements already made then, and then during the registration period this year, we've given preference to our NSFAS students and other students who we define as vulnerable in terms of their socio-economic circumstances. These placements could obviously only happen as we receive cancellations. So, you know, we had situations where students could not be placed immediately, but they have been placed as the cancellations were received. And then we also referred many students to private accredited accommodation. So we've experienced some challenges. I've mentioned, and it was quite clear, that we have a lack of accessible and affordable accommodations for financially needy students. And we also had delays in our ability to place students because of the late allocation of NSFAS funding, which then compromised the processes. But I do think the Residence Placement Office did a really great job in collaboration with the SRC and the Bursary and Loans Office to place these students eventually. So let's move on to NSFAS then, and I will be focusing on NSFAS, but I think it's important to recognize that the university makes a lot of its own funds available for bursaries as well. There are other private funders in the system, but for the sake of this conversation, let's focus on NSFAS for a while. So the other name for what we call NSFAS bursaries is the DHET bursary scheme. It came into place, as I've mentioned, after the announcement of fee-free higher education, and it was set to benefit students with a gross family income of under 350,000 Rand per annum. So the new system was then introduced in the beginning of 2018, and it is phased in over a period of 5 years, which means this year, and I think it's important to note that the scheme covers first and second year students. So not all students in the system currently are benefiting from this specific new scheme. Our senior students, those who have previously been funded by NSFAS and those who now applied to NSFAS in 2019, qualify for these bursaries, but they still have to adhere to the previous criteria, which was a gross family income of less than 122,000 Rand a year, and they also do not receive the full cost bursaries, but a capped amount. So this year the amount was capped at 88,600. And I think you can, as you're sitting here, you can realize that will also bring about some tension in our student communities. So what does the full cost bursaries then cover? It's tuition fees, accommodation, subsidized meals, there's a travel allowance, there's books, and a living allowance. And then the students also have to meet specific minimum academic criteria to be able to continue receiving their bursaries, and they have to complete their degree in the so-called N+1 number of years. So the normal duration of your program plus an additional year. And the bursary also requires specific social obligations from students, such as community service, and we will be liaising with the department around that going forward. So just to give you an indication of the number of students in our university that are benefiting from NSFAS funding, it's there you'll see 2,737, and next to that, the column right next to that, the total estimated fees that will be paid over to students at this institution. It's important to note that we have not received all this funding yet, and that our institution is in a fortunate position where we could, in many cases, stand in for some of the allowances that students are still waiting for NSFAS to be paid out. So we could assist our NSFAS students in that way. Then just some challenges. The Rector has also referred to some of the challenges around NSFAS funding. Even though the system is much better than a few years ago, we still had some delays in the disbursement of allowances that I've just referred to. There were some communication hiccups between NSFAS and students. At one point, the SMS communication was discontinued because of a phishing scam. So NSFAS didn't communicate with their students directly. The students had to log onto a portal, and not all of them had access to the internet. So that caused a challenge. And then there were some delays in the processing of the appeals and in the funding of students with historic debt. And we were fortunate to be able to manage many of these challenges within our current system. So in conclusion, as I've said in the beginning, registration really is a collaborative effort, and I have to use this opportunity to thank all the colleagues in the room. Many of you I see sitting here, people in the faculties, colleagues in the support services who contributed to the success of our registration period. And by saying that we had a successful registration period, I'm not at all saying that it was perfect. There's a lot of room of improvement, and we would also love your feedback to make our registration process better going forward. Thank you so much.
So I've received 2 letters on my way up that please get it moving. So I'm going to try my best on this day of the International Mother Tongue Day. I need to greet you in my mother tongue. Goeiemiddag, collega's. Good afternoon, colleagues. Molweni, Sawubona, Sanibonani. Should we continue? I'm very pleased to be here. And I'm going to try to be real quick and flip through some of the things you've already seen. But first and foremost, to remind you of this process that we started about 2 years ago that culminated in the completion of phase 1 last year in June. Part of that was the adoption and the approval of the strategy and the strategic framework by Council. Subsequently, want to highlight that phase 2 and phase 3 started after the approval, but it's now a continuous process, and I want to share with you some progress in terms of those phases. So phase 2 being the uptake of die integrasie gedeelte, waar ons dan wil seker maak dat die boodskap eensstemmigheid binne die visie en die strategie deurlopend is. So what we've started to do is to make sure that there's the consistent messaging in the media as well as the visual elements within the public spaces. And there I've used some examples, of which I want to highlight, for example, the round table where we have placed the values in the registration spaces where students were engaging right at the beginning of this year. The other is the door to admin A. As we take up or continue with the uptake of phase 2, it's also about the development of the electronic toolkit, and some of this information is almost ready to be distributed, where there will be one place where you will be able to find all documentation on the strategy. And that will support all of you in terms of the rollout within your environments and the discussions. And that will be followed later with some workshops, and that we've almost finalized. And the workshops will be in 2 steps. The one is capacity building, supporting you to how do we do this? How do we do strategic planning, and how do we ensure that there's an uptake for the strategy? And that will be followed by meetings within faculty context in terms of how do we then operationalize the specific actions of the strategy. So you will see that there's a bullet point that speaks to the strategic plan, and I will say more about that in a minute. So then we move on to phase 3, which is also already started, and this is about the alignment. So this university has been in existence for 100 years. There are, I almost want to say, hundreds of thousands of documents that's been there over years. So we're not starting afresh. But moving forward is how do we align what we do with the strategy? It's that point of making sense in moving forward. So what we've done is to start a process in collaboration with the Registrar's division to look at all the documentation that needs to be aligned with the strategy. And we are now over 300 documents just on policies and rules. Reglemente en beleide in die universiteit staan al meer as 300. So I think you can just get a sense of where this is going. That's excluding things like plans and protocols in handveste. And the point that I'm trying to make is we need to make sense of why are we doing what we're doing, and that we should not try to fix some of our issues by having a policy and a rule, but that it needs to make sense in driving the strategy forward. The other component in the alignment is processes. And once again, we've started to unpack the different processes that needs to be aligned. And here you've already, the rector has shared with you that the Sun student, the Sun finance system that we are going to roll out over the next, this year and next year, will bring about some of those system changes. But simultaneously, we are doing a total review of the IT system. We will be doing a total review of the human resources system to make sure that we align those processes. Because if you think back, when we launched the strategy last year, we made it very clear that one of the attributes of this university where we want to get to is to be agile, adaptive, and responsive. So how do we move into a space that we can move forward? So you've heard that over the last 2 days, we've had the Institutional Planning Forum, and this is where the rectorate, all the deans, the vice deans, chief directors, senior directors, and the faculty managers meet, and we unpack what does this new strategy mean. The first point I want to make is that we have embedded the core strategic themes within a narrative. And the narrative is that our ultimate outcome is that of being a thriving Stellenbosch University. How do we want to do this? By focusing on the stakeholders, internal stakeholders being our students, and therefore a transformative student experience as core strategic theme 2, and building networks and partnerships and purposeful collaboration with our external partners, and therefore number 3, which is focusing on exactly that core strategic theme. Then we get to our core business, which is internal processes, working on the theme 4, which is networked and collaborative teaching and learning, and 5, research for impact. But that's only possible through our most important enabler, and that is our staff and being an employer of choice. So really embedded the themes within a narrative, and I want to invite you to use this narrative as you engage in your different environments. So day 1 focused on context, the refinement, and we moved on to 2, how do we integrate, implement, and then how do we align what happens in environments. And if I say environments, I'm talking both the responsibility centers at the rectorate level, but also the faculty as well as the professional and support staff division. And how do we align those processes? And we are in the process of making it a streamlined process where in future we won't need any strategic plan from any division or a faculty of longer than 5 to 8 pages, so that it's clear of what it is that we want to accomplish. So my bullet point at the beginning said we refined the strategic framework. So we've now moved into an operational plan, that's the strategic plan itself. For each of the 6 core strategic themes, we've identified the 5 priorities per theme. So we've unpacked that. We have identified the game changer for each of these core strategic themes, and you will see this soon in communication to the university community, exactly what we see as those messages that we're going to focus on over the next 2 to 3 years. And then, which is always a very difficult task, is that we cannot continue to do everything we do and add on. So we had tough discussions about what do we need to stop. And we have identified very specific elements in terms of what is it that we would need to stop doing for each of these themes. So that really gives you a snapshot in terms of the past 2 days and moving our strategy forward. But I want to conclude by saying, colleagues, I think it's critical that we remember that all the elements within our vision and mission is interrelated. It's embedded in our values of e-care, excellence, compassion, accountability, respect, and equity, driven by our vision and mission, and with our 6 core strategic themes. And those elements that you see, the one in the maroon is the elements of our vision, and the gray ones, the elements of our mission. And this really forms a whole in terms of driving the strategy forward for the future. And I will definitely want to invite you, as we start with the workshops in the next month, that you find those opportunities where you can engage and that we can be involved in some of the discussions of how we make this a living document for the future, to make sure that we ultimately reach our vision of being a research-intensive university leading in Africa. I thank you.
So thank you very much, Prof Hester. Colleagues, we've cut into the time. So we have until about quarter to 2, and you've got some food at the back there as well. But I do want to allow for some questions. But if we don't get to the questions, I want to invite you to also engage with us in this manner by directing these questions and emailing them to this email address here at the bottom. And I'm also going to ask some of our satellite campuses who may be online as well, to direct their questions to that. So I'll take it if there are any questions, please. There's one in the front here to the left. If I could also ask you to identify yourself and your where you're working, and another one here at the front left. So let's take those 2 for now.
Thank you, Professor de Villiers. I'm Nicola de Jager. I'm from the Political Science Department in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. I'm very appreciative that one of your core strategic themes is employer of choice. But as I'm sure you know, in our Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, we've had a moratorium on promotions for a couple of years now, except for a limited number of promotions. And I wonder how we can continue to be employer of choice or aim to be an employer of choice if performance is not rewarded and acknowledged. And when will this moratorium be lifted, and when will promotions come into being again?
Thank you very much. Let's get the other question as well, and then to the front left here.
Good afternoon, Professor. Debbie Willifee from TRAC South Africa. My question is directed to Dr. Retief regarding the NSFAS disbursement of the allowances. What advice can I give and guidance can we give as TRAC to our students regarding those that have not received any funding whatsoever? You mentioned that there is assistance, and we would like to help them because a number of our students have not received any book allowances. They're really vulnerable, and then specifically those that are staying in private accommodation also not receiving meal allowances. Thank you.
Okay, so let me attempt to deal with Professor de Jager's Nicholas question there. So with the in humanities and the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, the challenges that faculty has experienced over the last number of years. So it is true that 2 to 3 of our faculties on a continuous basis over the last 2 to 3 years have experienced some difficulty with arts and social sciences. It's education, it's also theology, but theology to a lesser extent. So 2 renewal strategies have been implemented over the last 18 months for those 2 faculties, arts and social science and also education. And I think we've seen a significant turnaround in both of them. So things are looking much better in terms of that. And what we really need to focus on now is how to sustain that. And that was the main thrust of these turnaround strategies. So I'm going to answer to 2 points to that. So I think Professor Klopper already alluded to that, and I think it's important that in this coming year that we have a review of our HR processes at the university, and also in terms of promotions, appointments, promotions of our faculty. In this retreat or institutional planning forum that we had over the last 2 days, that is the single most prominent item that came up. Please do something about HR, review HR. And it specifically, the issue that came up was performance review issue, the performance appraisal issue. So that we will definitely look at that. The second point that I want to address is the Strategic Personnel Fund. I think we have an opportunity, and we need to really think strategically about what we do with the university's resources to align it with this new strategic framework and these themes. We want to be the employer choice, but we want to have research for impact, and we want to attract the best possible people. But it's not only attract. We want to retain, we want to develop, and we want to promote. And I think this is where the Strategic Personnel Fund will help us to do that. So we're going to put quite a lot of resources into that, and Council will also support us in that regard. That's the second one. The third point, however, is we need to stop things that we're not doing well. For example, if we have too few students in specific courses, if a course is not financially viable, if we have too many courses, then we need to stop doing that. And we need to also help our very productive academics to focus their efforts where it's best utilized. Ronel? So the email address is ecoms @sun.ac.za.
Thank you for the question. I'm actually going to pass it on to my colleague, one of the collaborators during registration, Mr. Ari Hanekom. He's head of bursaries and loans, and he's the best person to answer your question.
Yes, I think as you well know that NSFAS has changed for instance, the cash disbursements to students at the beginning of this year. Now this led to almost more than 6,000 hand actions for us to disburse. I think we are getting ahead. I'm positive that we will, within the next, say, week or so, be able to disburse all our allowances to all our students. May I just say that in the broader context, if you look at all the campuses currently, is where students are now putting a lot of pressure on financial aid officers because of the cash nature of the allowances. In the past, it wasn't like that. Students received allowances in the form of they need to buy their books at bookstores, they need to buy their food through service providers. That is not the case anymore. So you get more anxious students because it is actually a kind of allowance every month. It's a cash thing. We are at this stage this afternoon. We are going to discuss with our IT people how can we also get rid of most of the hand transactions so that we do it electronically, upload it. But it is not an easy, just a one-day shot and it's there. Also, just this morning we had a change in the allowances of NSFAS, where they gave us clarity on who can get a cash portion and who cannot get a living allowance. So, Debbie, I hear you, and we will address that as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Ari. And colleagues, we don't have any more time for questions, but I do just really want to acknowledge my debt and our institution's debt to the Registrar's office and to Ari Hanekom and his division there from Bursary and Loans for the outstanding job that they did during the registration this period. Very, very difficult, this is anxiety-provoking, stress-provoking to the nth degree. So please, let's just give them a hand of applause. Because what this resulted in is this picture you see here. The class of 2019. This is a drone from our welcoming ceremony in late January. 5,200, 5,300 young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed newcomers to our campus. And then after that, we started a new tradition, which I think there's so many old, useless traditions which I don't like. But this is a new one, and here I want to acknowledge Peter Klopper is the mover for that. And that is a new tradition, which was a walk, a procession from Kutsenberg through the streets of Stellenbosch and down Victoria Street behind a brass band of varying quality, but anyway, okay. But what a wonderful afternoon. This entire street was filled from bottom to top with new students. Are we not so fortunate to be able to participate in such a wonderful endeavor where we can be part of a thriving university, making it much better, a university that's on the move, and a university that is transforming for the best of South Africa. Thank you very much.